Come sit by me.
Meeting to order of our THEC board meeting November 14th, 2013. Ms. Carter, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bone? Mr. Cope?
Here.
Mr. Fisher?
Here.
Secretary Hargett? Ms. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Isaacs? Mr. Jarvis?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey?
Here.
Ms. Tobin? Treasurer Willard? Dr. Nixon?
Here.
Mayor Wharton? Comptroller Wilson? We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
I'm here too.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Just
See, I
thought
told
I'd mention that.
you. See, there's two Wilsons now, and I confused myself.
And we do appreciate that. Thank you. One, let me welcome all of you and thank you. We know there are quite a few things going on today, and I have been reminded that the Titans are playing tonight, so I will make sure that we are out on time. We have some special guests, and I would like to recognize one in particular. We have the Vice Chair of the Tennessee Board of Regents, Ms. Emily Reynolds. Emily Reynolds and I have been friends for many, many years. She is a tremendous public servant, And I think that's the only time I've ever said anything nice about her since we've been friends.
Publicly, no
And
less.
publicly, and I think that will be the last time. But Emily's with us, and Emily, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm
So-
honored to be here.
Thank you. So, Russ, I know you have some special remarks, and also do we have any other guests that I overlook?
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, you'll notice Dr. Rhoda is not here, of course. As of yesterday, he is a grandfather. His daughter, Meredith, and her husband, Mitch, have a baby girl, Caroline Ryan Christensen. So he sends his best. Everyone's doing well. He is in Phoenix with the family. I do want to recognize Randy Boyd, Special Advisor to the Governor for Higher Education, being here with us today. Randy, thanks for being here. As well as Dr. Angelo Volpe, President Emeritus of Tennessee Tech. Dr. Volpe, thank you for being with us today as well. Mr. Chairman, those are initial remarks.
Thank you. I would like to have at this time a motion to adopt our agenda as presented. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Adopted. Also, I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are adopted. Please. I'd like to turn it back over to Russ for some additional remarks. Russ, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, Dr. Ernest Grady Bogue passed away a few weeks ago, October the 30th. Well known to many of us, a long friend, a long and distinguished career in higher education at Memphis State in the 70s. Did a tour of duty here at THEC in the 70s. President of LSU Shreveport, later became a professor at UT Knoxville for nearly a quarter century, which is where many of us got to know him. Most recently, Chancellor at UT Chattanooga. But his influence, in my judgment, wasn't because of the positions he held or the books he authored. It was who he was as a person. His character, his wisdom, his judgment, and his basic decency as a human being. He taught us many things. I know there are many lessons that I, as a former student of his, will carry with me. How to look a problem directly in the eye, about the demands and responsibilities of leadership, and also for us to never forget the magic of education, the reason we're all here. He will be sorely missed, and if the measure of a person is in the depth and breadth of their influence, then Dr. Bogue had no peer. And God rest his soul. And I would ask if we could observe a moment of silence in his honor right now. Thank you.
Russ, thank you for those exceptional remarks. We're going to take the action items first because we know there's the press of other commitments. So at this time, we will take the first action item. We have 6 action items. The approval of new academic programs.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Krause coming to us, Assistant Director for Academic Affairs.
Yes, standing in the stead of Betty Dandridge Johnson, who is out today. Thank you, Chairman Johnson, Dr. Deaton, members of the Commission. We come to you frequently with new academic programs. The one that we're going to present to you today on behalf of Tennessee State University really is unique, though, and I want to focus on 3 reasons why I think this program is going to be a needed addition to the state's academic inventory. The first one that I want to highlight is when we look at new academic programs, one of the things we want to immediately ask ourselves is, does this advance a labor market need? Are we addressing something that we feel that our state economic and workforce development makes an imperative? And the answer for this program, which is a professional science master's degree that focuses on applied geospatial sciences, which I will explain exactly what that means in a moment. Yes, sir. The answer to that is a resounding yes. We have demonstrable labor need for this program, which we'll go into more detail in a second. But I just wanted to start on the front end that in the wake of the Drive to 55, one of the things that we've heard time and again is it's not just about more degrees, it's about certain degrees. And it's about ensuring that we're providing our students opportunities to gain a credential that will translate then into a workforce outcome. That is absolutely the case with this program. Second thing I want to highlight is the fact that this is a collaborative degree. Tennessee State University is to be commended. When you have a technical, STEM-focused program, there's a hazard that that program ends up living in a silo. within one department or one college, and it really becomes almost a boutique operation. TSU put in an enormous amount of effort to ensure that across the institution there was involvement, not just from the technical side, which in this case resides in the agricultural college, but also within the public service and urban affairs college and within their business school. The result of that is, one, I think a degree program that we have confidence that a broad base of faculty have been involved in developing, but most importantly, again, it's providing students an experience that is really hard to quantify, that they're not only learning the technical geospatial skills, but they're learning how those skills fit within business, which we absolutely want them to learn those skills, and second, how they fit within public service. Finally, this bullet at the bottom you'll see, which has been a constant theme at many of our meetings, this is an online program. This is a program that we hope will give working professionals the opportunity to advance with a master's degree without leaving the workforce. We think that that can happen in one of two ways. It could happen for a person that is already in the geospatial GIS field, and this master's will enhance their career. Or this degree is actually able to be accessed by people who do not have GIS experience. There's a track where they can enter at the entry level and take a left turn and have a new career. So those are kind of the 3 points I wanted to draw out before we get into the meat of the proposal. In the wake of the Complete College Tennessee Act, many of you will remember that the notion of institutional mission differentiation has been key. And when we receive new academic programs, first at both boards, at both TBR and UT, their staff do a tremendous job of evaluating, does this program fit within the established mission of the institution? And then once it comes to THEC, we certainly try to make that determination. TSU's status as a land-grant institution who has an agricultural research history that's pretty hard to match absolutely ensures that this program is squarely in their wheelhouse. We hope that the students that gain these skills, these GIS skills, will apply them in a range of areas, but specifically in agriculture. So let me talk for a moment about what is this field that we're talking about. We're pretty familiar, I think, with GIS. The geospatial approach incorporates a range of factors that aren't just imaging. They incorporate remote sensing. They incorporate soil analysis. Basically, if you can imagine every possible variable that can be put into a bin to determine questions of development, questions of agricultural progress, questions of land usage. This is the skill set that this degree will provide. It is unique. It is unique within the state. It's unique within the country, in fact. And the site visit that we conducted, and I'll talk a little bit about in a second, we came away really impressed with the possibility that this will change how we do some things agriculturally in the state. Finally, you'll see that clear empirical need for these positions. This is a growing field. We feel confident that students that enter this degree program and graduate with credential will be met with a position, which is the best possible outcome. Given the fact that this is an online program, that's good for a couple different reasons. One, obviously, we think it gives students some flexibility in their careers, but two, it absolutely keeps down costs. In this case it does. It doesn't always, but in this case it did. The facilities that are going to be utilized are already in place. Some of the coursework that this degree program will utilize are already in place. It was actually a matter of just packaging it differently for the student. And so the result here, we really want to highlight this, is we actually get into a surplus situation. I can tell you, when you look at tuition and you look at the expenditures and you end up with a surplus, that does not always happen with new academic programs. And so it was really thrilling to see that here. Look at our other metric for success here at THEC that we utilize a lot, and that has to do with productivity. These projections are very sound, and I'll highlight TSU's work once again. TSU went through an iterative process with their current students to say, would you be interested in this program? They surveyed employers to say, would you hire people from this program? The result of those survey actions is we're able to get a pretty good sense for some projections that, like any projection, they're not for sure, but we feel confident that these numbers indicate a glide slope to productivity for this program. A master's program, we assess we'd like to have an average of 5 graduates over a 5-year period, over a 10-year period. As you can see, we will be surpassing that in year 4 of the program. It's a good thing to see, and again, I think you could probably paint these as slightly conservative as well. So finally, just a moment about kind of what brought us to this point. THEC received a letter of intent in September 2010. When we receive a letter of intent from THEC, that's really when the feedback process opens. We receive it from the Tennessee Board of Regents Academic Affairs staff. We then evaluate it, and typically we will dialogue back with the campus to say, you are missing the following things. We'd like to see a little more elaboration in these areas. And one of the things I want to point out is you'll see the site visit was actually 2.5 years later. That's kind of a credit in some sense to two different parties. One, I think the work that TBR did with us to ensure that the letter of intent really addressed concerns, but mainly the campus. TSU took this letter of intent process seriously. They invested the time. They did not attempt to rush it. And so the result was in April 2013, we enlisted an external reviewer, an expert in the field of geospatial sciences. They actually went on campus with myself, Betty Dandridge Johnson, and Pam Knox from the Board of Regents. It was a day-long, exhaustive evaluation of the program. And by the end of the day, both the external reviewer and THEC and TBR staff felt very confident that this program should move forward. And that's why I'm here before you today. If approved by you, this will be implemented almost immediately. January 2014, we'll be able to add this to the catalog. Students will begin to be able to enroll. And so with that, THEC staff recommendation is for approval. Any questions?
Members of the commission, any questions for Mike? Can I get a motion to adopt the recommendation as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? It's approved.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. And also a special moment again to thank Dr. Tristan Denley, his staff at TBR, Dr. Pam Knox, and the entire leadership staff at TSU. Dr. Glover did a fantastic job getting this position in a program to succeed, and we look forward to keeping you updated on how it progresses. So,
Thank you, Mike. Excellent job. Our second action item is post-secondary education authorization. Dr. Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Deaton, members of the Commission. I have one action item for your consideration today. And just for a reminder, the process that we go through, we have an extensive application that the institutions have to submit. It has things like need for the program and the types of jobs that they can get. We do a site visit to make sure that if it's an equipment-heavy program like HVAC or something like that, that the equipment is there and it's operable. We look at finances, and then also the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions reviews all that information at our meeting. In addition to that, an agenda is sent to all the state schools to make sure that they don't have a program that is already meeting the need, and we did not get any responses when those agendas were sent out this time. So with that being said, the Committee on Post-Secondary Educational Institutions has recommended that the 7 institutions listed in Section 1B1 and the 152 new programs listed in Section 1B2 be granted temporary authorization and approval, respectively.
Questions from the commission for Dr. Chase?
How long is temporary?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
Is that, and then they come back for reauthorization?
If you make it for 2 years and you continue to meet the minimum standards, then you go to regular.
Oh.
Additional questions from the commission? Not, can I get a motion to adopt the recommendation as presented? So moved. Second? Moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It's approved.
Thank you.
Dr. Chase. The next item, the third item, item C, 2014-15 State Appropriation Recommendation. Russ, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This morning we went through a rather detailed look at the recommendations for both operating and also the next 2 items, tuition and capital. To summarize that for you, the staff's recommending $29.6 million in new operating funding for the formula units, about a 3.6% increase in funding, a commensurate increase for the non-formula units, med schools, ag units, et cetera, $11.6 million total. A significant increase in the need-based aid award funding for Tennessee, the TSAA, of $31.7 million is also in the recommendations. That would move that program from about a $64 million program upwards close to a $100 million program. The numbers of students who are eligible but who are not served because money runs out vastly exceeds the amount of money we have, and so that would make a significant dent in need-based aid funding. Also, too, the second of a 2-year non-recurring recommendation for equipment at the TCATs and the community colleges to address workforce training needs. Many of those programs are a function of whether you can find an instructor and buy a six-figure piece of equipment to train them on, and this funding would go a long way towards addressing that. The formula, this is the second year it has been fully operational, meaning that all the dollars we are recommending are prorated equally across schools, having no hold harmless, having a fully phased-in formula, and it is still working as intended, as it was designed to do. That's an overview, Mr. Chairman, but if there are questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Question from the commission for us. As he stated, I thought we had an excellent discussion of these items in particular this morning in the work session. If there are no additional questions, can I have a motion?
I have a comment.
Yes, please.
We very much appreciate the commission's and staff's recommendation regarding the non-formula units and allocation of them. We've championed that a number of years, and we appreciate your help, as usual.
Mr. President, thank you. Can I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? State appropriation recommendations approved. Ross, we'll move to your next item.
Great, thank you. The next item is in companion really to the first one. It's the student tuition and fee recommendations. And as a reminder, the Commission's authority is to recommend a tuition increase to the two governing boards who possess tuition setting authority. The recommendation from the staff is a 2 to 4% increase in the maintenance fee in the undergraduate tuition across all sectors, again, alongside the new money recommendation that was just approved. Those travel in tandem. Again, peer averages on fees this morning we talked about. We're right at average, so this is one of the lowest recommendations we've ever made. Hopefully it holds costs down, along with the financial aid recommendation, should make some significant headway onto affordability. So with that, it's a 2 to 4% tuition recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Additional questions from the commission for us as relates to the student fee recommendations?
So the boards, respective boards, will take it in, but they set the fee, and they can do 0 to whatever. That's
Yes.
all of
Full
the
authority.
respective boards.
That's correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion for approval?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved. Item 5.
And the last one, this is the capital portion of the recommendations. Really two sets of projects to receive state funding, and then a third list. The two types of projects to be recommended for state funding: capital outlay projects, new construction, 7 projects on the list, totaling $213 million across both systems, merging the priorities from UT and from TBR. As well, about $115 million for capital maintenance items across upwards of 70 projects between the two systems. There's a third list of recommendations, the disclosed project list, projects that do not require state funding, that are funded from external sources, from campus funds, from gifts, from grants. An intent to pursue is disclosed in this process to be presented to the governor. No state funding involved, though. It's just a disclosure of an intent to pursue. Those are the 3 types of projects being recommended by staff for approval today.
Any additional questions from the commission as it relates to the capital project recommendations? Now can I get a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second? It's been moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Ross. Our next issue is improving teacher quality grant awards. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon to Chairman Johnson and the Commission. I'll be very brief this afternoon. I have one action item to present for your consideration. The ITQ Improving Teacher Quality Grant Program. It's an amazing program that gives higher education the opportunity to directly engage with K through 12, our K through 12 partners by providing high quality professional development. The program was originally known as the Eisenhower Grant Program, but over the years is morphed into the Improving Teacher Quality Program. You will find materials in tab 1F. The focus of this federally funded program is to ensure that K through 12 teachers have the most up-to-date instruction in both content knowledge and pedagogy. The program requires a partnership between a high-need LEA, and a high-need LEA is determined by the poverty level of the school district and by how many teachers are failing to meet the highly qualified criteria established by the No Child Left Behind Act. And the College of Arts and Science is also a partner, and the College of Education. Each of these partners plays a very, very, very important role in delivering the professional development to the K through 12 teachers. THEC partnered with the Department of Education to develop an RFP that focused on grades 6 through 12, Common Core state standards in reading, literature, and informational text. Higher education is a very unique partner with this specific grant because institutions have the resources. And basically, when you think about faculty from a specific content area, such as mathematics or science, they have the knowledge of why, and then you think of the faculty from the College of Education, they have the knowledge of how. We convened a selection committee here at THEC to evaluate 17 proposals. The selection committee consisted of K through 12 experts and higher education experts from TBR, UT, TACUA, the Department of Education, and THEC. I would just like to say we have a few committee members here today. We really want to thank you all for all of your hard work. It was an amazing meeting, and I really appreciate everything. Each project was allowed a maximum funding level of $75,000, and the projects will be funded from January through December 2014. There were 12 recommended projects that include institutions from UT, TBR, and TACUA. And here's a nice map of the state to show you, I guess, where the projects are. And as you can see, each of the projects across the state is very evenly dispersed. So you'll have teachers from Memphis to Cleveland receiving high quality professional development, which is, amazing. Overall, this program is ultimately working to close the gap between K through 12 and higher education. And it's an amazing opportunity for our teachers, and staff recommendation is for the approval of these awards.
Members of the Commission, any additional questions for Mr. Brown as it relates to the Improving Teacher Quality Grant Awards? If not, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? It's approved, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Okay, we will move to the Chairman's report, which will be incredibly short. One, I would like to, we had an excellent work session, and I would like to compliment the THEC staff, which always does an excellent job. We received extremely excellent information. They did a great job. Russ and his team really did a job, and would you send Dr. Rhoda an email, tell him we are not missing him at all. He very well stated. And tell him Chancellor Morgan said that. Text him as we speak. So, Russ, at this time, we'll call on the Executive Director's report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few comments and then also some personnel introductions. Wanted to reiterate what was in a weekly update item from Dr. Rhoda a few weeks ago regarding the National Assessment of Educational Progress Report, the NAEP scores. And I'm going to have to read some of this to make sure I get the information correct. But this is an assessment, of course, for students in grades 4 and 8. And Tennessee was the only state that had gains in both math and reading for students in both those two grades over the past 2 years, the only state. And in fact, they were the largest gains any state had ever made on that assessment, as I understand it correctly. And as a result, our rankings on math proficiency moved from 46th to 37th nationwide, and in reading from 41st to 31st. And that is an extraordinary achievement for Tennessee students and teachers and everyone who works on K-12 policy, and it is to be recognized and applauded. So I want to recognize that. Some introduction of new hires. Behind me is Stephen Gentile, who has joined the staff. Please stand up, Stephen. There you are. Joined the staff in August. Stephen had a prior career at Davidson College, where he was Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, and is currently pursuing a master's at Vanderbilt, and joined the staff in August on the fiscal policy staff. So, Stephen, we're glad to have you. I'm especially glad to have you. I can promise you that. Also, Kurt Johnston. Kurt, are you in the room? I'll introduce him in absentia. Kurt is a graduate assistant in academic affairs working with Betty Dandridge Johnson and Mike Krause. Kurt has a bachelor's in history. Dr. Rhoda would be proud. And is also pursuing a master's at Vanderbilt. And also Joel Cummings. Joel? Joel is an intern with PPR this semester. Has a major in, I think it's English literature, Joel? Yeah, from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And is also a master's student at Vanderbilt. All three individuals, unfortunately, have the dubious honor of having been taught by Dr. Rhoda and myself. In spite of that, they're here with us today. I also want to recognize Katrina Miller. Katrina? This is Katrina's last commission meeting with us. She'll be moving on to bigger and better things with the Council of Chief State School Officers after a very productive 8 years with the commission, heading up the race to the top division, also having served in the Policy Planning and Research Division for several years as well. And Katrina, we just want to thank you for the work you've done and your contributions. A few more quick items. Our budget hearing with Governor Haslam occurs tomorrow at 12:45. They will be streamed online, so feel free to watch them. I've told it will go an hour. Starts at 12:45 Central Time. Tomorrow we'll be presenting much of the information that you were shown here today about our budget recommendations. Also, next week is a series of meetings with presidents from both the public sector and the THEC schools, the private schools across Tennessee. Regional meetings in both East, Middle, and West Tennessee being hosted at Pellissippi, at Lipscomb, and at Lambeth. A chance to talk about the Drive to 55 and to learn more about some of the details, to get some feedback from presidents, for them to talk to each other. Should be a very good opportunity. And as has been remarked upon, it is unusual for public and private school presidents to get together like this. And so it should be an interesting series of meetings. And those will occur next week, and Dr. Rhoda will update you about those as they progress. And then finally, both the Commission, as well as actually UT and TBR, are undergoing sunset review right now for next legislative cycle. We have had our exit conference here at THEC, but have not been given a draft report. The personnel have been conducting extensive interviews with personnel here, and I'm sure at the institutions and boards as well, extensive document review. Once we get a draft reports and findings, if there are any, we will share those, of course, with you as a commission. And then lastly, I want to ask David Wright to introduce some guests with a special report for us today.
Hello again, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Ever since 2008, the THEC staff and the board staffs and others from the business community, students have been engaged in developing and then maintaining and improving our commitment to a college completion agenda. I think we were an early adopter of something that hung together well enough to be able to call it that. Back in 2008, we received a planning grant from Lumina. We were one of 11 states nationwide to receive that. And based upon our capacity to move forward, we then became one of 7 states nationwide to receive an implementation grant. The amount of our grant was $1.2 million, and for that we made changes to our funding formula. We experimented with consortia of institutions in geographic proximity, a TCAT, a community college, and a university to see how well they could facilitate the flow of adult students across institutions. Our supply-demand study, and on and on and on it goes. And throughout all this time, we were being watched, not only by our funders and by the nation, but there was an assessment group, a program evaluation group out of Detroit named SPEC Associates. They are represented today by Melanie Hwalik, who is their president, and John Muffo. If you would stand. And every month we would get on the phone with them and talk about what was new and what was working and what wasn't. And they have been sort of crafting this narrative all along. And tomorrow morning, Melanie will be in this room at 8 o'clock to any one of you that would like to come to sort of give the results of that. But I have asked her now, within the context of the executive director's report, just give us a brief overview of what they're doing and why, and what they think about Tennessee after all these years.
Thank you, David. Chairman Johnson, Dr. Deaton, Commission, members of the Commission, I appreciate being allowed to be here for a couple minutes to tell you about our work. We have been evaluating the work that Lumina's investment in Tennessee, as well as in 6 other states. Those other states are Arizona, Indiana, Maryland, Montana, Ohio, and Texas. We have been watching, as David said, for 5 years, all of the accomplishments that you've made in Tennessee. There should be a handout among your pile that looks like this. The last 2 pages of the handout briefly summarize what we have found that Tennessee accomplished in the area of higher education, productivity improving, completion in Tennessee, as well as the very last page, which is a list of the kinds of things that Lumina invested in through its investment in Tennessee. Lumina is challenging, just as it's challenged the states to take on this complex work, it's challenged the evaluation to help the rest of the country understand the complexity of the work. And so we come here as our final gathering in Tennessee to discuss with higher education leaders. We discussed with some yesterday, and we are inviting you to come tomorrow morning. Some of the more complex issues that we find that Tennessee is grappling with. And so the topics, in each state we have different issues. The topics that we will be discussing tomorrow and that we discussed yesterday are in the areas of student financial aid, teaching adult students, and growing STEM degrees in Tennessee and its relationship to policy and to its outcome-based funding. So the very complex issues, we invite you to please come and join us in the conversation. There will be very public reports that will be produced in 2014, one for each of the 7 states. So there will be a public report for Tennessee about its accomplishments and what we have found, as well as a cross-state report that will look for patterns and themes and help the rest of the states understand what it takes to do this kind of work. So I invite you tomorrow, and I invite any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dr. Raleigh? Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Russ, any additional items?
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
This time we will have the system report, and Chancellor, we decided not to call on you since you dominated the work session this morning.
Well, I understand.
So, but we decided
That's fair enough.
Okay, good. Chancellor, would you go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to be brief and kind of keeping with the theme today. But there are a few things I want to mention, and one is at the top is I very much appreciate THEC's funding recommendation to the governor for inclusion in the budget. If accepted, this would be the second year that the outcomes are fully recognized in the funding formula. And it really is hard to overestimate the importance to our system and our institutions of funding the outcomes as they occur. We have embarked on a process, I guess, Dale, first time in several years. We're actually doing budget briefings or budget hearings, if you will, with each of our campuses. We've done 6 of those already. We'll do the other 13 institutions and our TCATs over the course of the next few weeks. In every case, part of the discussion, particularly as we turn not so much to this year's budget, but to forward-looking strategies that our institutions are employing to try to improve their outcomes, it's clear that to the extent we can create an expectation that if they make investments in strategies, it may have 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years to really reach full implementation and productivity, that it creates an environment within which really good thinking is taking place about what are those things that we can do to affect our long-term capabilities of being successful. And in our system, being successful generally means being successful with students that historically we have not been very successful with. If you talk about those kinds of improvements in terms of, well, if the funding doesn't materialize, then it's a very different discussion, because there are other things that they might choose to do on an immediate basis rather than make an investment of resources on a going forward basis. So I appreciate very much, Russ, you and the staff and the Commission's endorsement of a funding recommendation that recognizes those outcomes, and we're very much in hopes that the Governor, as he receives this recommendation, will find the wherewithal to be able to put it in the budget that he recommends to the General Assembly. A couple other things I'll mention briefly. Part of that recommendation included another $16.5 million or so, $16.5 million for equipment. That would be the second installment. And I can tell you that as we undertook our process this year of going to our institutions, and half of it was allocated community colleges, half of it to our Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology, we went through a competitive type process where the institutions proposed to us what they would do if they had some amount of money for new equipment. That equipment being very directly tied to workforce training, with the object to be creating new opportunities for new training to help employers in their regions. We got well over twice the requests that we had funding to satisfy. If we did it again, if we're successful in getting this recommendation, if we operate a similar process for allocation of these dollars, I would guess we'll get twice again what we have available. There is a real need for our institutions to have the investment capital to be able to upgrade equipment, to be able to really do the things necessary to reach the needs, to meet the needs of employers in their communities. And those dollars have been extraordinarily valuable. And I think we'll see beginning we're in a procurement process now with that equipment, but I think just in the next few months we'll see immediate return on investment. So very appreciative of that, and very hopeful that we can get that second installment. Two other things I'll mention, maybe three other things. One is we have begun meeting now, and I think I mentioned this before in a prior report, what we're calling our regional skills panels. We are undertaking a pilot of sorts here in Middle Tennessee, working with the Greater Nashville Regional Chamber of Commerce, the workforce investment boards in that area, and our TCATs and our community colleges. At this point, universities undoubtedly will be brought into this process, but really working with, on a regional basis, employers, our educators, not the president of the company, not the president of the institution, but really the folks who are dealing with workforce issues on a daily basis, to try to create an infrastructure that can be a continuing opportunity for us to understand much more clearly what the employers' needs are in terms of the competencies, and we're trying to talk about competencies as opposed to credentials, but really what is it that they need to know when they go to work for these companies, and how we can then shape our curriculum to meet those needs. And secondly, to help employers understand what are the competencies that are incorporated within the credential that our students have, to better understand the capabilities of our students as they enter the workplace. We're focused on three areas. We're focused on information technology, allied health, and advanced manufacturing, because those seem to be the three areas where the shortages of employees are most dramatic in this region. We've gone through an orientation meeting. We've gone through the first meeting of the skills panels, each of the three skills panels. And already I think we're beginning to sense that this is a real opportunity to create a closer understanding, a closer connection between us and the employers that we seek to serve. And I hope, I'm very hopeful, and Randy and I have talked about this quite a bit, that this can become a model for the state, and would be able to be replicated across the state. So I will continue to come back to you on a quarterly basis, kind of let you know how that process is going. But we think it offers a lot to help us get to the kind of linkages that we all understand the governor certainly has impressed upon us the need to do. Two other real quick things. One is updates on our presidential searches. We are close to naming a committee. We'll have a committee for the University of Memphis search named here very quickly. Our intent is to move forward on that search. We currently have an interim president who, Cato, I think, is doing a great job. Brad Martin is doing an extraordinary job for the university. But our hope is that we would have the process underway, actually interviewing candidates in early spring next year, with the idea of having a selection made that by June or so a new president would be identified, and would hope for some overlap with Brad and the new president, because we think that'd be very beneficial. So that we're moving in that direction. Cleveland State, the other search that's currently going on, is in the closing stages. We have 3 candidates that have been identified as finalists. They have been interviewed by Search Advisory Committee. They had their campus visits last week. I'm currently in the process now of going to each committee member and kind of getting their impressions about the candidates, how they were received on campus, and the various constituency groups that the committee members represent, be it faculty, staff, business community, whatever, to try to be in a position to come with a recommendation to the board, certainly by our next meeting, which Vice Chair is December 5th. Is that right? It may be before. Maybe try to do that prior to that meeting. The 3 candidates, just so you know who they are. One is Dr. Niles Reddick, who is the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Abraham Baldwin Community College in Tifton, Georgia, a strong agricultural program. I think, in fact, it may be Agricultural Community College. Dr. Gene Couch, who's Executive Vice President at Alamance Community College in North Carolina. And then Bill Seymour, who is many of us had an opportunity to work with after service at Maryville College, went to Lambeth and was the president at Lambeth, who really helped work through the extraordinarily difficult issues associated with Lambeth and their final days as an independent university, but helped arrange for and was very helpful in facilitating the association between Lambeth and now the University of Memphis. He's currently Vice President for Student Services and Development at Jackson State Community College. So those are the 3 candidates that we are choosing among, and as has been the case so far, there's a limited ability on my part to really screw this up, because they're all 3 really good. They're all 3 really good candidates. So I'm confident that we'll have a good president at Cleveland State, irrespective of the choice that we make. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that is my report.
Chancellor, thank you. I echo your comments. Brad Martin is doing an exceptional job. In fact, he and his team are interviewing the top 26 CEOs of companies in Memphis to talk about their needs.
Yeah.
And that's never been done before, so that's excellent.
There's good stuff happening.
It really is. University of Tennessee report, Mr. President.
Sir, Mr. Chairman, well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I thought I would catch you up on a few things that happened since our your last meeting, and me being with you in July. Some bright spots, obviously, that we'll talk about: a summary of our Board of Trustees workshop that we conducted. We'll also talk about tech transfer. We have a major initiative there, and a little dabble about enrollment figures. Before I start, though, I would tell you that Dr. Deaton, Dr. Bogue was an incredible human being. He had provided incredible leadership in interim capacity at UT Chattanooga, and we'll sorely miss him. I saw him a lot in the last few weeks. We developed a really thick friendship. over the time frame that I got to know him over the last 3 years. And again, what he did at Chattanooga was amazing in a year's time. A true servant leader, a true gentleman, man of great faith. We'll miss him. I, too, would thank the Commission from the standpoint of the budget recommendations. We see those as very positive. And again, the outcomes piece that John talked about is very important. You know, if you want to make this commitment to complete college successful, we have to fund the reward side of this enterprise, and I appreciate that, as well as what I said about the non-forming units. Our enrollments this fall are about steady state with where they were last year. There's about a 0.2% difference in total enrollment across our system. So we're still knocking around at that 49,000 number. That said, we have some people that have grown a little more than others. Chattanooga has continued to expand. Martin has contracted largely because they had a number of non-degree seeking students that were in dual enrollment circumstances, and they've elected to move away from that. Knoxville's actually up just a little bit from the standpoint of undergraduate enrollment. So the news is we've held our own. The graduate level, we have more PhD students than we've had in ever. Our MS level students are sort of contracting across the system. And we're not surprised by any of this, and we're actually happy about it. We probably have capacity to grow enrollment a little more at Knoxville, and at Martin we could grow some too. Our board workshop this fall, we focused on the issue around completion. And we brought in experts from Appalachian State University in North Carolina. Our regional is very comparable to, in our system, Chattanooga particularly, and has lots of application to Martin as well, except it's more urban. And then the University of Georgia, because both those places have really moved the dial on completion over the last 7 or 8, 9 years. And it was very enlightening. There's no one silver bullet here. There's not one thing you can do to improve completion. The one thing I think we came away with collectively from that workshop was that you have to be a data-driven institution. You have to look at where you want. There are probably low-hanging fruit components of this completion agenda that we're not doing as well at that we need to focus on because we can get more lift there. The overarching theme, though, that we came away with was if we could find a way to enhance and grow our professional advising cadre across our system, we think that would improve our completion statistics. In our own system at Chattanooga, they took a look at how many times a student met in their first year with an advisor and how likely they were to be retained. And it's inappropriate to call it one touch, but we'll call it that because it's really a meeting. If you met with your advisor once as compared to 4 times, you were 40% more likely if you met 4 times with them to be retained into the next year. We have units within our system that have mixed models. We have units that use professional advising alongside faculty advising. We have units to do nothing but utilize faculty. We have units that spread it across all the faculty in a department and unit. And we have units that say, we'll take a subset of faculty who seem to have, they're adept, they like it, and they do a good job of it, and assign large components of their time to advising undergraduate students. We think that if we could secure additional resources to invest in advising and professional advising, that's probably likely based on what we heard from both Georgia and Appalachian State to improve our completion statistics. And while our enrollments can grow a little more, we need to become more efficient despite the fact that we do pretty well in the completion agenda, but we have to do much better if we're going to be successful in the drive to 55. So we are looking at that, and we are trying to figure out how to find additional monies to support that. The Research Foundation at the University of Tennessee has been established since 1935. It is an arm of the university that takes the technology that we develop through our discovery programs and puts it into a real-world setting from the standpoint of taking that technology through the process of gaining protection, patent, licensure, and then eventually into the private sector, hopefully develop companies and foster economic development in Tennessee. We hold that as a core mission as a land grant, and being able to say that our research programs out of Knoxville, the Institute of Agriculture, and the rest of the components of the system should have application that provides solutions to people's problems as we carry it out. So a few numbers that are now coming out of that research foundation, as we've had a major effort over the last couple of years to reorganize it, are looking better. We had a record high invention disclosures at 145. And we had 87 U.S. patent applications done this past year, which is another record. Disclosures the disclosure increase is a 79% increase from FY09. And to give you some idea of the kinds of things that we're either protecting or looking at licensing, it includes educational assessment tools that are coming out of our psychology areas, cognitive disease detection that has been developed by our Health Science Center. We're looking at enhancing educational programming through modeling and generating patient scenarios for nursing, for example, is another piece of software and an enterprise that we have protected. And then we also have a company that's looking at new ways to utilize energy storage from the standpoint of battery technology. So we continue to underperform in this area as a system when you look at our comparators from the standpoint of our revenues that come off of the back of the licenses that we have. We have a real strong team in the foundation right now led by David Washburn, who has experience. And I think, frankly, we've turned a corner on a paradigm around our research foundation where at one time they would take broken down old professors like me and put them in charge of that who had been relatively successful as researchers, or very, very successful as researchers, rather. Not just kind of successful like me, and said to them, now why don't you go run this research foundation and translate what we develop with our faculty into real-world enterprises, get it licensed, develop a company. And, you know, there's a whole profession around these now, and that's what we've done. We've made a move toward a professional approach toward development of our technology for all the right reasons. It's not just the revenue stream that would benefit us and the discovery teams, the researchers, but it's also about us fostering economic development and hopefully keeping these businesses in Tennessee. On the personnel side, John reminded me of that. At one time in my career, when I first got into administrative appointment, I remember saying to my wife, if we just get all these positions filled, we'll be in good shape. And then I realized it's just a normal phenomenon that you got turnover. So we did have a turnover in a senior position this summer. Johnny Ray, who was our vice president for development, elected to resign and move on. He's got a new grandbaby in New York, and he's at a point in his career where he said, "Joe, I've just had enough." And so we have appointed Lofton Stewart, who some of you might know from Brownsville, Tennessee, and a lifelong guy who's given it all for Tennessee, in the role as an interim. We'll start a search sometime in the springtime to find a replacement for the VP for Development and Alumni Affairs and the president of our foundation. There are some days where this job is straight uphill work. There are days when most days it's lots of fun. But let me share with you an experience I had that was just pure joy about 6 weeks ago. And I'll close with this. So many of you know Keith Carver. He keeps the trains running on time for me and keeps me out of trouble. I sometimes call him my flak jacket. Keith's a great human being. He has a great family. And his youngest son, Britton, was at our house one day. And he looked kind of blue, and so I said to Britton, we call him B, "Hey, B, so what's going on?" He goes, "Dr. Joe, there's this boy in my class at school who doesn't believe my dad works for you." So I said, "Really, Britton?" "Yeah." He said, "His name's Ashley. He keeps giving me stuff." So I said, "Well, Britton, I'll come to your class." He said, "You will?" I said, "Sure, if your teacher will let us." So called up the school, we got it lined up, and we went to his class, second graders. And Britton had to introduce me. I felt like I was his show and tell. So I was. So Britton, Miss Simpson says to Britton at Sequoia Grade School, so introduce your guest. And he comes up, he stands next to me, and he says to his class, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 25th president of the University of Tennessee, Dr. Joe DiPietro. He's a very good friend of mine, and my daddy works for him." He pointed to his dad over in the corner, and Ashley sort of slumped down in his seat. And it was even more precious after that, because the questions was right before lunch, and so I said a few things about college and that kind of thing, and whether they're thinking about it. Many of them are. Of questions were like, can you eat all the donuts you want? Can you go to Thompson Bowling Arena? Can you get all the popcorn you want? How about Coca-Cola? And then we heard from Britain that there's an ice cream case somewhere on campus that kids can go to and get all the ice cream they want. So, it was just a great experience. And this job's pure joy most of the time, and that just reinforced it. And that concludes my report.
Keep bringing those to us.
Great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, now we have several information items, and we will start with the implementation plan update and compliance report. Scott? Okay.
Scott Slough.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm actually just going to, we have someone far more versed in this particular report to brief you, but I also want to introduce her as a new staff member. Ms. Emily Petro has joined us. She is a recent graduate of the Villanova School of Law. She graduated with distinction there last spring and just got word a couple weeks back that she passed the bar exam, so she's a newly minted attorney. Some of her prior work experience includes a stint at the Senate Clerk's Office in the Tennessee General Assembly, as well as St. Jude and the Nashville chapter of the American Red Cross. So we're proud to have her on board, and I just want to introduce her for the next item. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Scott, for the kind introduction, and good afternoon, Chairman Johnson and the members of the Commission. As was mentioned, I'm here with one information item today. I'm going to offer a brief description of our Title VI submission. So if you look in your binders at the tab numbered Roman numeral 2, letter A, there will be a copy of our Title VI implementation plan. This plan was submitted at the end of September, and it covers the 2013 to 2014 fiscal year. By way of brief background, Title VI is a federal law. It was part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And what it does is it prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. And as you're likely aware, in Tennessee, we have an agency called the Human Rights Commission. Basically, that's the state office that's charged with enforcement of and verifying Title VI compliance. Now, state law requires that all state governmental entities submit annual Title VI reports. They're due to the Human Rights Commission by October 1st of each year. Now, there were no findings in our report and no lawsuits that were filed involving Title VI related issues. As you page through the report, you'll see materials that outline the steps that we'll take in the upcoming year to ensure that we do remain compliant in the future with the requirements of Title VI. And at this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the Commission on this information item? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our next information item is the articulation and transfer report and special analysis of the Common General Education core curriculum. Dr. Alex Gorbanoff.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Dean, and members of the Commission. Today I'm presenting the findings from our latest annual articulation and transfer report, which fulfills the statutory requirements of THEC to report on implementation policy of articulation and transfer and student transfer activity. So this report pursues two goals by virtue of that. So the first one is basically update and implementation of articulation and transfer policies, especially regarding the Articulation and Transfer Mandate of Complete College Tennessee Act. The second one is to examine trends and patterns in student transfer activity, and I'm going to focus primarily on this, but the report itself has much more to offer. So because of data availability, past reports focused on student transfer in fall semester only. In contrast, this year's report analyzes student transfer during the entire academic year, 2012-13. So let's start with the general context. Tennessee student population is quite mobile. To illustrate, among bachelor's graduates in 2011-12, almost 45% transferred at least once in their prior academic career. Over 33% had attended any two-year college, meaning it could be public or private, in-state or out-of-state. And almost 30% had previously attended a Tennessee Community College. As another illustration, in fall 2012, 7.5% of all undergraduate enrollees transferred in that semester. In 2012-13, over 26,000 students transferred into the public sector in Tennessee, and almost 7,000 into THEC member institutions. In every semester, similar proportions of students transferred into each sector. Most students transferred in fall semester, the blue segments of the graph, about 60% in each sector. Less than 30% of students transferred in spring, green segment. So this slide presents transfer students by originating location. Over 60%, which is the highlighted blue segment of the graph, of transfers came from in-state public and private institutions. Out-of-state students in totality accounted for 36.5%, but this group of students is not homogeneous. The majority of out-of-state transfer, the highlighted section there, over 20%, are actually returning Tennessee residents. The real out-of-state transfers, which is the dark green segment, is 2.4 times smaller, so which is 8.4%. And on this slide, THEC out-of-state students are presented separately because their state of residence is not reported. So the next slide breaks this information down by receiving sector. So over 33,000 students transferred into Tennessee public or THEC institution in 2012-13. Most transfer activities happening within Tennessee, that is within and between the public and private sectors. More intense internal transfer activities happening within the public sector. You can see over 14,000 students representing 54% of the total 26,000 compared to 425 students among THEC institutions, which is just 6%. Different numbers, but similar percentages, around 36%, transferred from out of state into both sectors, into the public sector and the THEC institutions. Tennessee is receiving students from all states, but their contributions differ significantly. In 2012-13, 9 states, each sending more than 400 students, accounted for over 49% of all out-of-state transfers. These states, colored in red and dark brown, include 6 bordering states and Florida, Texas, and California. Let's proceed to transfers into the public sector specifically. So for consistency with past reports, this slide reports just on fall semester transfer students. So in fall 2012, at the end of the line, transfer students constituted 7.5% of the overall undergraduate enrollment, public enrollment. This figure is consistent with the transfer enrollment in previous years, and it also is consistent with the changes in overall enrollment. More students transfer into public universities than into community colleges. However, the relative sizes of transfer sources for these two sectors are more or less similar. So a transfer from other public institutions and state and out-of-state institutions account for the majority of transfers in both sectors. And if we compare percentages and the absolute numbers, we can see that universities rely slightly more heavily on other Tennessee public institutions and slightly less heavily on out-of-state and private institutions. Within the public sector, transfer activity is multi-directional with some noticeable patterns. So most internal activity is vertical in nature, meaning that it's happening between community colleges and universities. It is also reciprocal, meaning that although 43% of students move from community colleges into universities, almost 30% move in the opposite direction from universities into community colleges. And this group of students is kind of intriguing for us, and it warrants special analyses in the future. The horizontal transfer activity is less pronounced, around 13%, but it's still sizable. Let's now look at some transfer students' characteristics. Students transfer at different points in their careers. In 2012-13, almost 21% of students transferred before they earned over 12 credit hours. Nearly 61% transferred before they earned more than 48 credit hours. It is remarkable that a large number of students, over 21%, transfer with more than 60 credit hours but without a degree. And just 8% of students have this many credits and a prior degree. So this is an ongoing finding in articulation transfer reports year after year. So transferred students demonstrate low degree efficiency in terms of earned credits. The next slide shows academic majors chosen by students who transfer with more than 60 credits, but without an associate's degree. So these students predominantly choose the same 4 broad major fields as all transfer students. However, the order of preferences major is different. For this group of students, health professions and related services is the most popular field, while for all transfers, the most popular major field is liberal arts and sciences. The report also examines students migrating from Tennessee College of Applied Technology, TCAT, and unlike regular transfers who are defined as new students at the receiving institutions, you can see that most TCAT transfers are coded as returning or readmitted students. They're not new at the destination institutions. And many of them are simultaneously enrolled at a TCAT and some other public institutions. So only 68 students out of the total 863 were coded by institutions as transfer students, that is, new students bringing in academic credits. So there are few students migrating from TCATs, as you can see, and when they do transfer, they predominantly choose community college as their destination. So you can see that 4 times as few students from fewer TCATs transferring to public universities. This slide shows that TCAT transfers, green columns, are generally similar to traditional transfer students, gray columns. The greatest difference, almost 7%, is in the gender composition. The gender composition of regular transfer students is very similar to the overall student body. It's about 42% male and 58% female. However, there are more female students among TCAT transfers, and this fact has to do with the major choice. Many more women major in the most popular health profession and related services than do men. In 2012-13, there were roughly 350 women versus 50 men. It is also remarkable that 75% of TCAT transfers change their major field after transferring to new institutions. Out of 863 students, only 214, which is 24.8% at the bottom, did not change their major field after transferring. And we're talking about drastic change, big fields, not just majors within the fields. So this finding runs counter to the impression that after transferring, former TCAT students are building on the work that they did at TCATs, while in fact they might be starting from scratch in a new institution. So the key points to remember about the student transfer activity in Tennessee is that Tennessee students are mobile. Public and TCOA institutions show similar activity by semester. Public sector demonstrates more intense internal transfer activity. Most transfers are happening within Tennessee. Most of out-of-state transfers are actually returning Tennesseans. 9 states account for about half of all out-of-state transfers. Public transfers have been consistent over time as the ratio of the overall enrollment. Internal public transfer is mostly vertical between community colleges and universities. Transfer students demonstrate low degree efficiency. TCAT transfers are mostly returning students, not new, and they are mostly women majoring in health professions. And TCAT transfers are kind of prone to change fields. So the report itself discusses these and many other trends and is available for download at our website under legislative reports. And I would like to acknowledge the input from TBR and UT System and TCUA for providing data for us for analysis. Then the excellent work of the data management staff who promptly provided spring data for analysis for this report. GIS expertise of Indrani Oja, who developed the map, and also great input of Gerald Cummings, our intern. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes?
Question? Go ahead. Yes, please.
I had a question about the out-of-state transfers. Why do you think California was so high in that group? Is it a cost of education differential or what?
Well, I cannot give you the answer from the data itself. California, Texas, and Florida are traditionally big providers. I assume it's just driven by the size of the states. They're sending a lot of students away.
Okay, so
It might be related to
many
economics,
states-
but I cannot give you the answer from the data that I have.
Okay.
I just know year after year we're receiving a lot of students from these 3 states.
As do probably many other states then.
It's not just Tennessee.
And then one other question, do you think it is the change in their majors that causes these students to transfer, the TCAT students to transfer to other schools and then go in an entirely different direction? Do you think that's what drove their transfer, or do you think they transferred and then changed their minds? Do you get any feedback?
Yes, they change major at the time of transfer. In the new institution, already have a new field. So when they transfer into a new field altogether. So I guess the reasons might be related, the reason for transfer might be related to the major change to begin with. But at the same time, as I said, many of these students are not actually transfers the way we understand it. They might be simultaneously enrolled. They might be transient students, just are there for something additional to their study. So they might leave community college, go to a TCAT for a couple of semesters, and go back. This is
Go
what
back
might be
to
happening.
community college according to the numbers. Okay.
That's a good point.
So your articulation agreements, traditionally that I recall, articulate the community college work into the senior institution. Is there a reverse process? If you've got a guy with 60 hours or a lady with 60 hours transferring to the senior institution but hasn't finished their associate degree, do we have a way to articulate backwards so they can finish their associate from the senior institution? Do we do that?
Yeah.
We do?
We do.
Really just now, just in the last couple of years, we have aggressively created these reverse articulation mechanisms to be able to track and identify, and once that student hits the required credits, they
Right.
get the right credits,
Right.
then we're working to make sure
Allow
that
them
gets pushed
get
back
counted
to
as
community
a
college,
degree completion in the backside.
write them a letter and say congratulations.
The report actually talks about this on page 6. It talks about reverse transfer policy, describing it in detail.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question on the TCAT transfers?
Yes.
Or do you distinguish between completers and non-completers, so that if a student completes their program at the TCAT and then enrolls in a community college, is that a transfer?
The thing is, I have to go by what we have in our system.
Depends on how it's coded.
So right now we have no capacity of doing this because, like for regular transfer students, we have a special code. For TCAT transfer, I had to go just by their enrollment if they were enrolled at a TCAT in a previous semester.
And when we think about majors at the TCAT and the changing majors, kind of describe that to me. What somebody, say a student who's received a completed certificate in cosmetology goes to a community college, there is no cosmetology associate degree, so how would they, in fact, in some cases, I don't know how frequent, but they might actually go to community college for a business program because they're starting a business, which many of our cosmetology graduates do. So, I mean, how would that get treated? Do you know how that might be treated in the...
Well, we'll have to look at it in the future reports because currently we were not doing this. It was not related to what they have completed at TCATs. But in the future we'll have to look if actually they were done with their certificate at TCATs and whether the major change was just driven by this, as you explained.
Alex, can you go back to the vertical horizontal transfer slide? Yeah, that. Do you have any sense, Alex, of whether, I guess I'm looking at the public university vertically down to the community college? I shouldn't say down, but well, I guess it had to be up or down. It's vertical. If there's an academic reason why that is, or do you have a sense of why that's happening? Because that's quite a bit of transfer activity from 4-year to 2-year. Do you have any sense of what's going on there, if there's an academic reason perhaps?
Well, I guess it could be two major reasons that I can foresee, academic on the one hand and financial on the other hand. So right now I cannot give you a data-driven answer to this because this is not like a part of the current analysis that we performed. We had this discussion at some point, and we looked at academic performance of these students, thinking that we might have an explanation for this transfer. We came up with the average GPA for all groups transferring in different directions. So this particular slide, I think I left out the average for the entire population, which is 2.81 for the entire student population who transferred within the public sector. But you can see that there's not a big difference between students going, say, from public university to community college than from public university to another public university. It's
That's interesting.
100-point difference. So it might be related to academic performance, but I think we need to come up with more nuanced way of measuring it somehow, and I haven't looked at it this time. So, but as I said, it's going to be part of the education transfer report in the future for sure, because this is an intriguing finding. It's actually higher than in the national study done by Clearinghouse Research Center, when they found that about 14% of students nationally transferred from public universities into community colleges, but they only looked at the first-time freshmen. This is the entire population, so it's different. What they also found was interesting, because they found that 17% of those who transferred to community college eventually returned to their sending institution, and 28% went into another four-year institution. So for them it was like a temporary thing, maybe regroup, accumulate less expensive credits, whatever. So.
Yeah, we've looked at this in context of lottery scholarship recipients who have lost their scholarship, and you see some downshifting like that. This could also be an artifact of somebody who kind of feels that coming on and maybe wants to sort of get their house in order. It's not big enough to show up in the means, but that mean is not a frequency distribution. We can do more looking at that.
In additional questions on yes.
Would this include anything like summer study? If a student was at a four-year university, for example, and did maybe 2 courses at a community college back at home for the summer and then went back, would that catch that type of happening, or would it not be included in this data?
It was happening during the academic year, yes, and it several conditions should be met, but a student should be classified as the transfer student by the receiving institution, and they know how to code these students. If it's just a transient, like summer type of course, type of work, for 1 credit, for instance, it will be this student will be probably coded as a transient student, not actually transferred. So, but it's captured by the data and coding. Yes, Dr.
Yeah, we also looked to see whether this was more prevalent for students who live at a distance from their, or studying at a distance from their home location. And that's one of the things, that's one of the features of the data, at least in Tennessee Board of Regents. We've started to see students who maybe begin at an institution that's a long way away from home. Maybe it's an impact of the current economic climate. They're moving back to somewhere that's closer to home.
Yeah.
So
it's a
moving back to
probability.
community colleges, they're geographically more diverse across the state.
Yeah.
So that-
Dr. Kim Martin actually yesterday just mentioned that this should be part of the analysis for sure, because like homesickness, economic reasons should be also driving this transfer
maybe
behavior.
homesick, maybe economic, but anyway, coming back to
Proximity to home.
around location.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Excellent report. Now we will go to the P6 Initiative Status Report.
Yes. Mr. Troy Grant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Deaton, members of the Commission. Thanks for your time today. I'm going to provide a brief update on the activities of the Office of P16 Initiatives over the course of the last quarter since we last presented to you. The first program that I'd like to provide an update on is the Lumina-funded Latino Student Success Program that we operate in the Memphis area. This has been a program that we've spoken to you about in the past, but it has been a while, so I think it's appropriate to provide an update. Just as a review, we received a grant from the Lumina Foundation in 2011 to increase the number, to create structures to increase the number of Latino students who are entering and succeeding in higher education in the Memphis-Shelby area. It's a $600,000 grant that runs through 2015. It is a place-based grant that leverages a collective impact framework to move the needle in terms of completion amongst Latino students in the Memphis area. So we recently submitted a report to the Luma Foundation providing an update on our progress in the last year. So I would like to give you a little bit of an update in terms of what we shared with Lumina Foundation. I mentioned that this is a place-based initiative. We have partners that are from a variety of sectors, business, education, higher education, the nonprofit community. Again, if you're familiar with the collective impact framework, this is the framework that we're leveraging with this initiative. Year one highlights. We approach our work with a couple of different tiers. The first tier that we are approaching with this work, and this is just to make kind of paint a picture of what this population looks like in the Memphis area. Memphis in Tennessee generally has one of the fastest growing Latino populations in the country. A large part of that is centered in the Memphis area. So this is an emerging community. And what's interesting about this work with Lumina, we are partnered with other communities like Santa Ana, San Antonio, who have very robust services and mature programs focused on the Latino community. We are a little bit different in that we're more like Savannah, Georgia, or areas of North Carolina where we have this emerging community. So it was very important to create a framework where we're building public awareness of the imperative that is increasing Latino student success. Tennessee will not be able to be successful. Memphis will not be able to be successful unless we see growth across all population groups. And that's what this initiative is focused on. So some of our work has been bringing together a collaborative to look at a series of metrics of where we are with Latino student success in the Memphis community and how we can track to move the needle. Another part of this collaborative work is bringing in additional funding to seed additional work. And in the last year, and this is significant, we've received $250,000 in cash match to this initiative to expand or create programming for Latino students in the Memphis area. A hallmark of this program was the creation of programmatic work. There was not much programmatic work focused on the Latino population in Memphis prior to this initiative. So we partnered with Latino Memphis, which is an advocacy organization in Memphis, to create what they're calling a Brindo Puertas. I took French. I've gotten very good at rolling that R, at least I think so. A Brindo Puertas means opening doors. We leveraged our model from the College Access Challenge grant, where we provided subgrants to nonprofit organizations to create college mentoring programs. We targeted our interventions to Kingsbury High School, which has the largest Latino population of any high school in the state and in Memphis. And we provided services to students in that school with the anticipation of then expanding to additional high schools and eventually to community colleges and other institutions of higher education in future years. In terms of just a sense of some of the results we saw this first year, we provided mentoring services to approximately 45 students. 20, I believe, 3 of them were seniors. 100% of those students, so this was a small pilot, 100% of those students completed 3 applications to higher ed institutions. 91% of those students enrolled in higher education this last year. That is 182% higher enrollment rate than the previous year from Kingsbury High School. So we're very pleased with the results that we have seen. And I think what's been really interesting is leveraging the Latino community around this work. And we're learning a lot in terms of what that type of engagement looks like and then bringing that engagement into the school, partnering with higher ed institutions. Our program staff with the Brindo Puertas has secured $250,000 in scholarship funds for these students. Many of these students are receiving full ride scholarships to institutions, so we're very proud of that work as well. Moving forward to this next year, we've expanded to 4 additional high schools, and we've set up shop at Southwest Tennessee Community College to focus on retention. And so what's interesting about this model as well is that we've been able to replicate without hiring full-time staff. we're partnering with existing school staff to take on the model that we've seen at Kingsbury and to replicate it with technical assistance from Latino Memphis. So this has been a low-cost, efficient way of replicating this work. I do think that we will see similar results going forward in the next year. Additionally, as our students have kind of splintered from high school into the variety of higher ed institutions across Memphis and eastern Arkansas, those students are coming back to provide mentoring services to the students in our direct service high schools. So we will be sure to provide an update as that program matures. Next up is the College Access Challenge Grant. And so you should have all received a letter from us earlier in the fall with some updates regarding this program. So just as a reminder, College Access Challenge Grant is a federally funded program. It is a formula grant. So every state is allotted a certain amount of money. We have to reapply for that money every year. Along with CACG, there is a maintenance of effort requirement. There are actually two of them. One is that we continue to fund higher education at a rate that is equal to or greater than the 5-year average, the 5 previous years. Also, we have to provide scholarships to students attending private institutions that is equal to or greater than the average of the 5 previous years. For the first time, Tennessee did not meet the requirement as it relates to funding higher education in FY12, and because of that, we were forced to request a waiver for the maintenance of effort requirement to the U.S. Department of Education. We did that and worked with the folks at F&A and Budget to pull that data together, and we received word in the fall that our waiver was not approved. We were one of 33 states who submitted a waiver, and only 6 of those states did actually receive funding this year. There's a lot I can say about the merits of this federal policy, but I won't necessarily waste your time with that. So as a result of not receiving this funding, we are cutting some programming, which includes 6 subgrants to nonprofit organizations providing mentoring services across the state. Yes, please.
Failure to meet maintenance of effort was due to ARA funds.
No, it was due to decreases in allocations to support higher education institutions. And so if you look at the kind of the trend line, we had one year where we had kind of a uptick because of AIR funds, and then we had a large, but even if we balanced out that kind of uptick so that it wasn't such a large gap, we still wouldn't have met the maintenance of effort requirement.
And it's over a 5-year period?
It's 5 years.
That's
Thank you.
Answer, yeah, right. Yeah, the 5-year thing. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Yes, please.
Useful to mention how much we would have needed to increase the maintenance of
Yes.
effort and how much we would have got back.
Right. So the opportunity that the U.S. Department of Education provides us is that if we can make significant effort in rectifying the error or the violation, as they call it, and we would have had to. The state would have had to put $100 million extra back into higher education to receive our $2.5 million grant. Well, that's not a good trade-off.
Bargain to me.
Yeah. So, yes. Any other questions I can answer about CACG?
So when does this take effect?
Great, good question. So the way that this grant works, it's a 12-month grant, but it has to be spent down over 24 months. We've always been a year behind. So what's fortunate about the way that we've set this up is that it's not as if these subgrants are ending today. We are reducing their grant amount. So they have all made plans to wind down their programs and find additional areas of supplemental funds. And so we have a variety of different cutoff dates. For instance, the AIRS Foundation will expire the rest of their CACG funds this month, but they have other plans on how they're going to continue services, whereas the majority of our subgrants will continue to provide services well into the spring. And I will say, I mean, it's commendable these organizations are trying to find ways, and they really are doing a great job of ensuring that they are keeping their commitments to the students that they're serving through the school year.
When can you reapply? I assume we're going to reapply.
Mm-hmm. So we have to do the analysis based on what the budget comes back up in the future, that we will be able to reapply in the summer, this next summer. And so based on how the numbers shake out with this new upcoming budget, we'll be able to build a case as to whether or not we'll be eligible going forward. And I will say, and this is to commend the staff that I work with, we're very proactive in making sure these subgrant organizations knew that this was coming down the pike the summer before it happened. So they've known this for 18 months, and we've been working with them to plan appropriately.
So when we reapply, will there still be, if they make due, if they fill the gap for this year, when would, if we receive new funds, would those
So
come into
those funds would be made available August 2015.
15.
Still be
Excuse me,
one-
August 2014. I apologize.
Chances are we'd still be seeking a waiver, right?
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe a couple of years of
Right.
progress.
Once those peak years move off too, yeah.
And really what it would...
Renewed commitment to funding.
Yes.
Right. And so what the narrative would more than likely look like if we didn't meet maintenance of effort, and we wouldn't, it would be, based on this budget, is that enough to kind of show significant effort?
Troy, do you know anything about the 6 states that did receive the waiver?
I do, to a degree. So there's a couple of different things that, one of the requirements is private funding, scholarship funding for private institutions. And just like in Tennessee, students have the ability to choose which institutions they go to. And so those states that had a decrease in funding of scholarships to private institutions, the argument basically was students could choose where they took their funds, and therefore they were granted a waiver. Also, there are some states who are able to make the significant effort because it was a small amount of money. I would say nearly half of the 6 were territories, and so the budgets that we're talking about is significantly lower.
Great point.
Big difference.
Great job. Excellent. Any more questions?
Garrett, you got to do Garrett.
I'll finish up if you want me to. I have a couple. I'll be quick. Okay.
You can be not quick.
Okay.
My favorite topic.
Sharon's always a good supporter of Gear Up. Gear Up, gaining early awareness and readiness for undergraduate programs. Just a couple of brief updates. As required by the U.S. Department of Education, we selected our third-party evaluator. We did this through a formal RFP process. We had 14 institutions and evaluation organizations apply. It was a competitive process. We have awarded this contract to Cobro Consulting based out of California. They will be providing our third-party evaluation over the life of the Gear Up grant. They also are our data management vendor, and so we look forward to working with them. In August, we had a kickoff for the Gear Up program. We'll report at the next commission meeting some of the activities of the last semester, but what we did focus there, and I think this is illustrative of what we're trying to do with this grant. We brought together partners from across the state, from the Department of Ed, from SAS, to bring in a variety of resources. Mike came to talk about sales, to make sure that we are infusing into these communities that we're working all of the best work that's happening around college access and success, and making sure that these counties have the opportunity the first opportunity to take advantage of some of the resources that are out there across the state. The last thing with Gear Up, we have a market research study that we're partnering with Walker & Associates. We wrote this into our Gear Up application. Walker & Associates is based out of Memphis. We are doing a study. We are going to go to 3 of our communities and do very structured interviews to try to gain an understanding of how students, teachers, parents, counselors, and community members view and understand college. What are the reasons to go to college, to not go to college? This will help us craft not only our statewide implementation and our statewide messaging, but we're going to package this in such a way so that our individual counties will be able to craft messages of how to, in effective ways, talk about college access and the importance of it within their communities. The last thing is College Application Week. This is our 6th College Application Week. This event is an awareness event around the college-going process. We had 290 high schools and organizations and middle schools. This is the first year that we reach out to middle schools to participate in this event. We had a little over 50%. So the way that we get data on this is through surveys of counselors who implement and of students. We had a little over 50% of our surveys come back from counselors, and what they indicated was that over 48,000 students participated in a College Application Week activity. And I think that it's important to note this is not just seniors. We push this down into the earlier high school grades and now with middle schools to talk about the importance of college. Activities include things like college dream walls, going through practice college applications, doing campus visits, college fairs, those types of things. 44% of the students that participated in the program were first-generation college or future first-generation college students. And so the feedback has been very positive. And so I wouldn't be remiss without a couple of pictures. I don't know where, for my UT folks, where you buy those overalls, but that did happen somewhere in East Tennessee, so it was a good event. Now, any questions? Yes.
Better in them than I do.
It's just the first time you worked with Walker and Associates to do market research?
It is not. They were selected through an RFP process in our last Gear Up grant. We had a good experience, and we've continued our relationship with them.
They do excellent work.
They do. They do great work.
Good. Any other questions for Troy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Next, we will have Core to College Status Report.
Yes, Miss Melissa Stugart.
She's up there.
Already ready. Good afternoon, Chairman Johnson and members of the Commission. I am here today just to give you a little bit of a very brief update. I know that we're towards the end of the day. We're getting maybe a little bit of meeting fatigue, but just a quick update on Core to College and where we are with our programming. This should be a familiar slide. The last time I was here, I gave you a briefing over what we were going to be doing, and now that we've done some things, I want to tell you what we've accomplished in the last few months. And so just to kind of give you a recap, Core to College is a multi-state grant-funded program that is aimed at increasing, creating a more seamless transition between K-12 and higher education, specifically around Common Core, state standards implementation, and academics. And in Tennessee, we're focused on two very specific projects. We're doing some curriculum redesign for entry-level credit-bearing courses in English and math, as well as we have developed statewide P16 curriculum councils specifically focused on regional needs between the two tiers, K-12 and higher ed. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief update on each of those projects and how we're doing with those. So first up, talking about the curriculum redesign. Now, Dr. Deaton was talking about the NAEP scores earlier, and I think that really frames the rationale behind a need for the curriculum redesign, specifically with Common Core implementation in K-12. Our K-12 students are improving. They are drastically improving, and we in the higher ed tier, at level, we need to be thinking about how do we adjust for those students that are coming to us with higher rigor, more expectations out of their coursework. And so what we have endeavored to do is create the first national effort at aligning curriculum to the Common Core state standards. And so what this is just an overview of our timeline and our teams that we have formed. But on the next slide, and this is the same slides that you've seen before, these are the actual redesign materials that we have created to date. So we are the first state to have actually completed a core-aligned curriculum for English, specifically expository writing, or as it's mostly known, English 1010. In math, we've chosen college algebra. And all of these materials are currently being evaluated by external evaluators from each of the institutions, higher education institutions in the state, and will very soon be available on our websites for you to view. If anybody in this room would like to have an advanced copy to be able to give some feedback, we are very open to that and would love to send that out to you, because we are very transparent in our effort to gather as much feedback as possible to make this these very useful documents for all institutions. Our next curriculum redesign convening is going to be on January 17th, at which point we're going to be thinking about the dissemination process. The spring, we're going to be piloting these materials. We've already been gathering folks to be utilizing these in their classes in the spring. And then next fall, we're going to start with a series of professional development sessions that are to be really planned out at our next January convening. Any specific questions about the redesign before I move on to the curriculum councils? Great. And the curriculum councils, this is probably a familiar slide. We have 8 curriculum councils across the state, and we have all had our first meeting in October. We all convened. And this was this was a combination. We had a lot of folks present, but our big goal in forming these councils was keeping an eye on sustainability. How can we ensure that this isn't another one of those P16 efforts that comes and goes? At one of these meetings, I remember somebody saying, "Didn't we do this in the 80s? I think we did this before. I think we all came together." But it was a true collaboration with K-12 in that we've partnered with the Centers of Regional Excellence through the Department of Education to bring these efforts to the people, to bring them together into the same room. So specifically, we had TECUA represented, TBR, UT, every higher education institution, public was present, as well as over 100 school districts, K-12 districts were present. A total of over 500, and over 100 of those were K-12 superintendents. So there were some very high-level folks there participating in these conversations. But our goals were to build on the existing partnerships between all of the state agencies and the districts and institutions of higher ed and business communities. We had some community partnerships in the room as well. And important to mention that TCATs were present, some directors of TCATs. We specifically wanted to devise and execute action plans. So the meetings were orchestrated to be collaborative in nature, where we were really thinking through what are our common areas of need and how can we effectively and measurably achieve some goals towards relieving those needs or addressing those needs. And as well to think about increasing post-secondary attainment. Drive to 55 was a huge part of our conversation, really thinking about how do we not just get those students to graduate from high school, not just get them to enroll in college, but how can we truly get them into the workforce and be productive, happy citizens. Specifically, these are some highlights from each of the councils and what they're focused on. All of this information, all the summaries, the agendas, the materials, all of these are on the council websites, which have all been formed and are constantly updated, thanks to Heather here, who is very quick at updating all of our websites. It's very impressive and amazing. But every council very specifically determined the need to meet regularly, either biannually, 3 times a year, or once a year. And most of them will reconvene again in February, with a couple of exceptions. One's meeting in January, and one in the South Central decided to meet once a year, with some specific sub-councils meeting in between there. But all of that information is available on our websites. But I did want to just highlight a couple of these. Southwest specifically has a very impressive and aggressive plan to think about aligning reading instruction between pre-K all the way up into the workforce. And so they are forming several expert content teams to think through what is it that we would like to say in a joint statement about best practice in reading instruction from all perspectives and all stakeholders in the region, as well as thinking about how that aligns to the team rubric in K-12 and how gen ed faculty can benefit from knowing more about reading instruction. South Central is really thinking through the development of a regional student teaching handbook with all stakeholders involved, hoping that that will increase K-12's willingness to take on student teachers because of that fear with the TVAS and team and teacher accountability. And in the Southeast, they are having a very significant meeting coming up in February where they're going to be bringing together both high-level discussions in the morning around gap analysis, as far as what are the skills gap, what is the skills gap between what the K-12 side is producing and what higher ed is expecting, and then also having content teams come in the afternoon and start really addressing what are we doing in the classroom to address that skill gap. And all of the other regions are doing just as impressive things. I just thought I would highlight those, but please do go to our websites and check out some of the amazing work, the action plans that have been developed in each of the regions. I've been very impressed and happy with the level of conversation that was happening around the state. And just right, we have them on a loop, but just a few bits of feedback that came in after the meetings that you guys can look over there. I won't read them out to you, but it is pretty incredible work to have all of the sectors in the same room. And I just really want to highlight how powerful it was to have them engaged in student-centered collaborative discussions, and that was voiced several times in the meetings. The idea that we don't give them enough opportunity to come together to really think through what our students need together rather than working in silos or vacuums on our own issues. There really needs to be that transition space, and all it cost was lunch. Really. And that was amazing to be able to have such productive conversation over the last month and then moving forward throughout this next year with some action plans. So we'll be updating you regularly, or check the website or register for our newsletter, which will come out quarterly. If you haven't already, please do go to our website and check us out. And that's it. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
I probably should know the answer to this, but does private K-12, have they adopted the standards, and are they part of this? Private schools.
That might not, I might not be the expert at that. As far as, I know that it's.
There are several classifications, and some of the classifications are required to follow the rules and regulations of the State Board of Education. So those would be using
the Common
all
Core.
of that, and others would not.
Okay.
Another question. This sounds fabulous. It really does. It makes me so proud of Tennessee. What I want to ask you is, what have been your disappointments? I mean, where have you stumbled, or where does it seem like it's not working as well, and what do you think the reasons are for that?
Well, one of our main, we did have norms at the beginning of our meeting, just because we were bringing together, it felt like a hotbed.
Yeah.
It really did. And one of our norms was asking folks to risk productive struggle. And I asked them to live in that moment, that productive struggle where they're actually willing to voice their concerns and not leave feeling like they didn't get to say what they wanted to say while remaining civil. And I do feel like we got there, because that was a specific intent of our meeting, was to say, what is it that you're really thinking about us in higher ed? What is it that you're really thinking about us in K-12? And really getting to the heart of the issue rather than, you know, kind of being polite and nice and saying what you think the other person wants to say. So there were some times that got a little bit tense, but as far as disappointments, there weren't a lot. There were a few folks that attended that were less than engaged, I would say, but for the most part, heavy engagement. We could have probably had a few more folks present. We hit a pitfall with spring break. Spring break was an issue for K-12, so there were some districts that weren't able to attend, but they are really interested in coming back through on the next round.
And where you have developed the core-aligned course profiles, they're out being reviewed, and then you'll pilot them this spring, do professional development next fall.
Yes.
Implementation spring of 15.
Well, and again, these are just, we're really thinking of them as created resources. They're not going to be mandated sets of curricula. They are just resources and materials that are optional for faculty to use. We certainly would like to encourage them. We're also bringing this about in the face of the revitalization grants that are coming out of TBR. I see Tristan over there, give him a little nod. And so really thinking about what can we provide faculty that's going to help them to adjust to that transition that these students are going to be facing as they come into their higher ed classroom. And so our courses that we've redesigned really are just what we're really thinking about as an injection of the Common Core flavor. They're certainly not high school courses, but they do align. Specifically, we've created crosswalks between the K-12, 11-12 grade band ELA writing standards and the current course objectives. Well, we've rewritten slightly the course objectives to align better to the Common Core state standards while keeping that same idea afloat or present. And then the materials, again, are just the suggested sequencing, suggested approaches, suggested best practices, and all of that will be available, but I'd be happy to send you an advanced copy.
Well, I'd love to see it. My question is, do people take suggestion? Will they follow suggestion?
Well,
I mean, have we created this marvelous model that they're going to say, isn't that pretty, and put it on the shelf and leave it there?
I almost hesitate to say things. Mike's looking at me. No, faculty do their own thing.
I know.
And they do their own thing. And I think that really, Mike's coming over here.
Because I have a
He's
thought.
coming.
I have a thought. The central problem we're hoping to solve with this is that right now, oftentimes in freshman math and English, even credit-bearing professors find themselves remediating.
Mm-hmm.
So in a freshman comp class, even the students who tested out of remediation, the professor finds himself teaching the 5-paragraph essay, which they should not be doing in freshman comp.
Or poetry.
Exactly. So the hope is these students who progress through the continuum of Common Core should be showing up to the college classroom prepared in a fundamentally different way than anything the professors have ever seen. And so what we think will happen, and we are seeing this already, is this ends up being a net benefit to professors. They're gaining more classroom bandwidth to do the things they should have and wanted to have been doing for many years, versus feeling like they're having to go back and instruct basic principles. So I think that we've been so careful with this grant to make clear that these are models and these are absolutely suggested, because we want to respect academic freedom. There are those faculty who I think will absolutely be energized and will begin to put this into their classroom, because I think they'll find that when our Tennessee students are coming out of high school prepared in a different way, their classrooms can be ran and instructed in a different way. So,
And we're hoping to get much more buy-in with the professional development, showing them what they can do, allowing them to practice, really transformational professional development, so that, try it, you'll like it mentality, instead of mandated, do it. That's kind of our approach.
all right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Missy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next information item is Race to the Top.
While Heather's getting that up, I'll go ahead and start, and I will be brief because I know I'm standing in the way of the closing of the meeting. And first of all, this morning you heard in the work session a very in-depth presentation by Victoria Harpel around the report card on the effectiveness of teacher training programs. And I'm not going to go into the report card, but I want to reiterate to you how important and valuable this tool is. We're one of a handful of states that has the ability to really look at the outcomes of our teacher preparation programs. And what we've learned from this over the past 5 years is that we have a lot of excellent work going on in our teacher preparation programs, but we also have a lot of work still to do. And so I encourage you to look at those folders that Victoria gave you and look at those schools in your districts and see how they're performing and engage with them on that. This is an area where we can change the entire pipeline of education. If we get solid teachers in K-12, we're going to have better students and higher completion rates later on in college. As they mentioned earlier at the funding formula, a lot of our completion and retention in college is based on the academic performance of that student when they enter. So if we can prepare our teachers better and get strong teachers, we're going to have better students coming into higher ed. So what are we doing at the state level to support this work? Well, I'm going to talk about two things here. One is the data that we're providing back to the institutions. Previously, we were unable to give individual level performance indicators on teachers when they perform in the classroom to the institutions that prepared them. We're working with the SAS Institute in developing a web portal that will give them individual level information on how their teachers score on the teacher effect score through the TBOS metric. And here you see a little bit of what it'll look like. The institutions are literally salivating at this. We get calls probably daily from deans asking, when is it going to be available? And THEC has really taken the lead on this and is going to provide this at no cost to all of the institutions. It's an interactive web portal that I think that will be very, very helpful in helping programs understand where their strong points are and where their weak points are. The other thing that we've been doing over the past year is something that we're calling advanced analytics. This is where we're collecting information from the programs totally on a voluntary basis and again at no cost to the programs that will look at program inputs and see how they impact program outputs as measured by TBOS. So we'll look at things such as, does the course of study matter and how effective the teacher is once they get into the classroom? Does the number of clinical experience hours or the length of the internship matter? Does the preparation or the effectiveness of the mentor teacher they have matter? And what we're doing is SAS is doing all of the analytics on this and providing it again back to the institution at no cost. So in the spring, programs will get up to 10 reports on variables and research questions that they've selected. We had statewide meetings all over the state that determine what are the basic components of your program that either indicate effectiveness or ineffectiveness once your completers graduate. And finally, we're providing some curricular resources to support programs. Missy talked about the Common Core standards transition. We want to make sure that our teacher pre-service programs are ready for that, and that their students, when they enter the classroom, are able to teach to the Common Core state standards on the first day. We've partnered with the Ayers Institute at Lipscomb University, and we have a Common Core advisory committee made up of private and public faculty representatives from institutions all over the state. And we're developing full-length video lessons for them to use in the classroom. They also have a facilitator's guide and an interactive website where they can go and get information and how to incorporate that into their pre-service program. We also have the TBOS modules, which I've previewed with you before, which is over 8 hours of content to help teachers understand how to use the data that's available once they get into the classroom. So along with providing information back to the programs, we're helping provide high-quality resources to help their programs improve. So with that, I try to be fast. And since this is my last commission meeting, if you have any questions, please email that address or Victoria Harpool, and they will get back to you. But I do hope that you go to your institutions in your service area, the ones where you have a relationship with, and talk to them about their teacher prep programs, as it's very important.
Thank you. Questions? On behalf of the board, I would like to wish you much success in your next endeavor.
Thank you.
And we have been so pleased with all the information you bring forward.
Thank you.
Very much success. Ross?
All right, well, 3 o'clock straight up, Mr. Chairman. I'll note that I was worried about that. We're right on the gun there. Last item in the notebook is next year's commission meetings. I'll note that the January 30th, 2014 meeting is the joint meeting with the State Board of Education. And also, finally, many thanks to Lavella Carter, Sonia Wiley, Rosie Paget, Heather King, and W. Higley for help on the logistics and making this meeting run smoothly. So with that,
thank you. Let me thank all of you, because we had to move the meeting because of Thanksgiving holiday. Thank the staff for your great work. And I promised to get you out of here by 3, and I was sweating that. So thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Because Rich wasn't.
Safe trip.
So let us know.
We are adjourned.
Appreciate it another time.